What is going on, everybody, and welcome to Thursday. Is it Thursday? Yeah, the Thursday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Here's a reason. I have COVID. I'm not going to let it slow me down. If I was a little bit low energy, I thought maybe it's just because I didn't sleep because my little son didn't sleep, but nope, got COVID. But I ain't no bitch, so we're gonna power through it here. I fell asleep before the Avs went nuclear. Woke up, asked Cliffy what happened. He's like, "Yeah, Nathan MacKinnon had a natural hat trick in 7 minutes." Here we are. So,
man, like I told you today, I had Colorado 1 plus Cousins, Paterka, Quinn because I was pretty sure that was going to be a line for Buffalo. And then when I saw Barkov on quote the third line or whatever at warm up, I was like, "Oh, this is a good opportunity to get it really low on Barkov and throw in some Moskovich or whatever at min price, put in some Florida power play guys, and away we go." And I would have just absolutely just like stone cold nutted the slate had it not been for a swap right before lock. And it's just one of those frustrating things. Like I had a good night a couple months ago swapping before lock, so it can work in your favor. Last night it did not. Anybody that was on Colorado was justly rewarded. Man, that Buffalo team, like we brought it up on the show yesterday. Every once in a while, they come out and they just have a tremendous game. And I went to bed after the first period of that game. I think it was 3-1 Kings. Wake up and it was a 5-3 win for Buffalo, and it like they looked like they really carried the play. It's just a team that's really, really frustrating. Thankfully, they're not on this slate. This is a 9-game slate here tonight. There's a bunch of teams on the back-to-back: Carolina, Boston, Arizona, so on. There's also a lot of injury news. I think it's going to be pretty important to pay attention before lock because there are some guys coming back. Some guys might be low owned because of it. Some pretty big name defensemen coming back. So might be able to get some low owned combinations here tonight. And as much as I hate to say it, it might be another one of those swap 10-minute before lock type of nights. And I always dread those, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, you remember the stuff when it goes badly like this, but you also remember like it all evens out eventually. Sabre is a very bipolar team. As Haas would say, if you kept your original lineup, you would have mopped ass last night. That's one of my favorite Haasisms. But I don't even know what mopping ass means. But yeah, this is a fun slate. This is a power play bonanza. Tons of teams in good power play spots. Edmonton loading up their top line, probably just to rest them. But we'll get to that game at the end. Some multiple 4 totals, multiple high 3 totals. So, yeah, let's get into this slate here. Before we do, just want to say thank you very much for all the support through the Super Chats and the affiliate signups. You guys rule, man. Like, I'll be completely honest. I didn't think when we were told we're switching to revenue share like we are right now, that we would have made it to this point in the season. Not only did we make it to this part of the season, we are crushing it because of you guys, and that's why we're here so often. You reward us, we reward you. You pat our backs, we pat yours. You know what I mean? Like we try to be here as much as possible, and wouldn't be possible without y'all. So apparently I'm from the South, but thank you guys very much, and truly appreciate it. It means a lot. Let's get into the slate. Philadelphia Flyers with a 3.1 total heading into Detroit. The Red Wings have a 3.3 total. Big news here. It only took 3 months, but Alex DeBrincat is back on the top line with Dylan Larkin. He was only brought in to play specifically with Dylan Larkin, and then they moved him away from Dylan Larkin for 3 months. Still not on the top power play unit, though. Baby steps. We'll take what we can get. It's a pretty good matchup, though. It doesn't really with Couturier and Konechny with what's his face out, Tippett out. They had Cates up there, they've had Farabee up there, but their goals against have been sliding. Obviously, no Carter Hart. Strangely enough, though, like Samuel Ersson has been one of the better goalies this season, and I didn't realize it. I saw a tweet that goalies who've had the highest percentage of quality starts, which is a start with goal save above expected. He's had 75% of his starts with goals save above expected, which honestly shocked me, but not a bad season. That being said, no ownership on Detroit 1 here, and that is really what is drawing me there. They're 19-6. It's a little expensive. If DeBrincat was on the top power play, it might be a little bit better, but like not the best power play spot anyway. Flyers do have a really good PK, but it is a sneaky good 5-on-5 spot. Like I just said, the goals against for Philly have been sliding, so I do have some interest in Detroit 1 here. That's about it for Detroit. Like Perron, Confer, Fabry, I guess is fine as a filler because you get Perron and Confer on the top power play, but again, not a very good power play spot. On the flip side, if it is Farabee up there, and I think it should be, unless it's Cates.
Might be Cates.
Yeah.
That's Jamie Drysdale didn't take morning skate today, so like there's a chance that they go 12-6 here tonight. But Philly's lost 3 in a row. Like I don't think Torts is going to stick with the same line combinations. Like putting Cates on the top line seems like a really like plausible scenario here tonight.
Yeah, if it's Cates, the interest wanes a little bit. If it is Farabee, they're fully correlated. Detroit's penalty kill not great. So I in a nutshell, I do have interest in Philly 1. It's just a matter of who's there with Couturier and Konechny.
Yeah. I do like Detroit 1 in a nutshell. Like their numbers with DeBrincat are like only 2.6 expected goals. But DeBrincat and Raymond both have really high rates of scoring chance assists. It's something tracked by a website called All Three Zones. It's just, how often can they create scoring chances when they're in the offensive zone? So even though it's 2.6 expected goals, like it's one of those things where I suspect that they can drive higher quality chances. Like those are 3 really good playmakers. DeBrincat and Larkin at least are good finishers as well. In 185 minutes together, like they did play a lot together earlier in the season, as you mentioned, 4.1 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. I started the day like kind of like really interested in Detroit 1, especially if Farabee was going to be on the top line for Philly because he's not that great defensively, but Noah Cates is. Like that's what kind of worries me is like Couturier is already pretty good defensively. Like him and Konechny have been good defensively this season. Putting Noah Cates there makes that a really good defensive line. Like I think Cates has the best expected goals against impact on the Flyers going back to last season. He's been injured a fair bit this year. And you talk about their price, $19,600. Like we'll get to other lines later, but I wrote up Nashville's top line for my picks article. They're cheaper. The Ottawa top line that we'll get to a couple games from now, they're also cheaper. Carolina, depending what they do, they'd be a lot cheaper. Like there are just other lines that I'm kind of interested in as well in that price range, give or take, like $1,000. And with Cates there, like it's kind of scaring me a little bit. I'm going to be honest. Like he is one of those defensive guys that I do worry about. He was like the matchup last year when Couturier was hurt, where if you're going to Philly and you're getting the Noah Cates line, it was like, well, maybe I'll wait for another night to stack them. Like that's kind of it. So I do have interest in Detroit 1 because they do create a lot of offense. You mentioned the goals against for Philly. It's the expected goals against too, like outside the top 10 over their last 15 games. The penalty kill is still pretty good. Detroit does draw a lot of power plays, 4.1 minor penalties drawn per game over the last couple months. So maybe they can get like 1 for 5 on the power play or something like that. I just have a little bit less interest in Detroit now than I did like basically like 6 hours ago is kind of what I'm trying to say. But they would be the only line I have interest in. I have no interest in Detroit 2 or Detroit 3 or anything like that. The Philly side is, I think, where things get really interesting because Cates on the top line would kind of take me out of wanting to stack them because like as good as he is defensively, he's like Joel Eriksson-Ek 4 years ago where that's all he is good defensively. But the second line, if it is Cates on the top line. Then Farabee almost certainly goes down to the second line. The second line with Farabee, not a huge sample, but 62 shot attempts, 3.1, expected goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 for Farabee, Frost, and Atkinson. And they're going to get those second and third line matchups from Detroit, and those lines are bad defensively. Like, just Detroit 2 alone, Confer and Perron, 3 expected goals against, 66 shot attempts against per 60 minutes. So, like, I think now that we have a lot more information on this game, I think the line that I actually like best here is Atkinson, Frost, and Farabee. Really soft 5-on-5 matchups. The power play time is what it is. Like, but the Flyers' power play doesn't really matter that much. You're getting them for the 5-on-5 anyway. They're not that expensive. I don't mind Philly 2 as a filler line here. If I was playing, 100 lineups tonight, let's say, I might have like 2 or 3 with Detroit. Just don't know if I'm going to get there at single entry anymore.
Yeah. And the thing is with that Flyer second line with Frost and Atkinson, they're on the second power play unit with Drysdale, and that unit has been better than the top unit. So, I don't mind that full stack. Eventually, Drysdale is going to move to the top power play because Igor Zamula has been just a road cone on that power play for whatever reason. So, yeah. But I do agree with you with Flyers too. If it is Farabee on that line, if Farabee's on the top line, I do have interest in the top line. New York Islanders with a 3.3 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 2.8. If you live on Narrative Street, a lot of people here do. Patrick Roy back in Montreal. He doesn't play though, so I don't know why people are making a big deal of it. Igor, Brooks, or pick Zamula, pretty much. Or what was that guy from? Never mind. Anyway, we're continuing on here. Horvat, Barzal, Lee, 17-9. Nelson, Palmieri, Hudson, Fasching, 12-9. Now, I'm not a big
Pierre Engvall's probably going to be back and on the second line.
So, yeah, I was just going to say that. Thank you for that. It doesn't really impact that much because Fasching, Engvall, not great for DFS either. So the interesting thing is Arbor Jackey's back, and that dude took a couple penalties in his first game back. Islanders have a really good power play, and this is a good power play spot. So not a huge league guy, but my preferred line here is the Islanders top line. I think you can go like Horvat, Barzal, Dobson even. Or if you just want to take Lee off and put Palmieri or Nelson to make a power play stack, I think that's perfectly fine. If you want to go to that second line as a filler, I think that's also fine, depending on your build. But the thing is, like Horvat and Barzal, they're going to play heavy minutes. Patrick Roy, much different coach than Lane Lambert. He plays his top guys heavy minutes. He pulls his goalie in the second period, not the second period, but he does some things against the grain for NHL coaches, which actually is pretty advantageous for DFS. And one of them is playing his top guys heavy minutes. So I do like Islanders top line here. I do like Islanders second line as a filler. I don't really love the Montreal lines.
No kidding.
Yeah, and that's why I like Islanders one, because you take Slavkovsky off the top line, you put Josh Anderson. That's like putting me or you on the top line defensively. So I'm just not a fan of the top line. A Monahan Slavkovsky 2-man, I guess, is okay because they're both on the power play and the Islanders penalty kill isn't great. That's probably where I'd go. Cole Caulfield one-off is probably fine as well, but I just don't love these lines for the Habs.
Yeah, you and me both. One thing I'll kind of push back on is Pierre Engvall. He doesn't have DFS value himself. He's not going to produce a lot in DFS, but he really helps that second line score.
I agree with you. I just meant if you're going to stack him and if you had Fashion there and you put Engvall there, they're pretty much the same from a self DFS impact. Like they're going to get you 1.3 each. You know?
Yeah, I mean, on a good night.
Yeah.
It's just he does help them score and create a lot. Like we mentioned on the show, I think it was Tuesday. 5 scoring chance assists per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. Like that's a top line rate. That's what Engvall has done this season. If you go back to last season, when he got there at the trade deadline, with him on the top line, it's like 46% more expected goals and over double the actual goals scored per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. Like he is a difference maker on that line offensively. It's just that he doesn't get in on a lot of the scoring because the defensemen are so involved, and he's kind of like the first guy in. He's the guy that will set everything up, and then the other guys kind of play pitch and catch between them. But I don't really have interest in that line because of the ownership. Like 6.7% with Fasching there. I imagine it'll be probably about the same with Pierre Engvall there. I think that's a little bit too high for a 9-game slate, especially where Engvall doesn't do a lot. So I think a Nelson Palmieri 2-man would kind of almost make a little bit more sense. It is the Islanders top line I do like here. I wrote up Bo Horvat in the picks article today. It's free to read over at Stokastic.com. He's got 27 points in his last 25 games going back to December 1st. The top line generating 3.7 expected goals and 4.4 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. They get a Montreal team that's given up 16 power play goals against them in their last 20 games. You mentioned Josh Anderson. Like he is the worst defensive forward that they have on the team. It's going to make the top line worse defensively. So that makes the Islanders top line matchup even better. There is reasonable amount of ownership. I brought up the top stacks for the second line. I'll bring it up for the top line, 12.1% ownership. That is high. But I honestly think it's fine because they're priced at $17,900. They're priced in a spot where you do have a lot of different places you can go. Like if you don't play basically Edmonton or Tampa Bay here, you can put them with almost any other stack on the slate. You can play them with Nashville. You can play them with Philadelphia, Ottawa, Minnesota, Dallas, like Carolina. It on and on it goes. Like even Boston, if with their new line combinations, if they stick with them, we'll get to that game. So I honestly do like the Islanders top line here, even if they are 11, 12, 13%. No issues. I think it's a good 5-on-5 matchup. It's a good power play matchup. I'm not really that worried about any matchups on the Montreal side. Like Islanders too, I think is perfectly fine. But I think I would rather just go with the top line, go with the guys that get the heavy minutes, go with the guys that have played extremely well offensively basically the entire season, or at least since, November 1st, I guess. So Islanders 1 is what I have most interest in. I don't have a ton of interest on the Montreal side, like as a Habs fan, like these line combinations are making my eyes bleed. I think what you said was right. Like the second line is probably where I'd have the most interest, like a Monahan Slafkovsky 2-man, Monahan Armia, something like that. Once you get into those second and third lines from the Islanders, like the second line is a lot better offensively with Engvall, but it's just a bad defensive line overall, and the third line's even worse. So I think once they get into those middle six matchups, there's not a whole lot to be concerned about. So yeah, I a 2-man from the second line, a 2-man from the third line, something like that, I think is where I have interest. But it is Islanders 1 I like best in this game by quite a bit.
Same. Boston Bruins with a 3.4 total heading into Ottawa. The Senators have a 3.1. Boston played last night. They lost. I already forgot who they lost to. It was like 3-1, right? That was yesterday. Drawing a blank. Look. Anyway.
Sorry. Oh, Boston. Yeah, they lost to Carolina last night, 3-2.
Carolina. There we go. I'm just shot. But my memory anyway. This interesting game going into Ottawa. One, for whatever reason, the Senators don't seem interested in having one of their best 3 centers play the top line center. Neither here nor there. Like I was telling Clifford before the show, if it was anyone but Josh Norris on the top line, I would be jamming Ottawa 1 here tonight because Boston 1, not very good defensively. They're back-to-back on the road. Sens have over a 3 total. it's just Josh Norris. Like, I just can't do it. It's not something like we talk about players beating us. If Josh Norris beats me tonight, stick tap to Josh Norris. Like, I just can't, do that. I like the second line here. Stützle, Batherson, Ridley, Grieg. I'm not sure what the deal is with Grieg on the wing. I think eventually he'll move back to center and hopefully Norris moves to the wing, but I'm not the coach. But as it is, like, I guess you can consider that line the top line. I know Brady Tkachuk's their best player, but as a line, Stützle, Batherson, Grieg is probably their best line. They're going to get a Boston second line matchup, which we don't know what it's going to be. Boston completely jumbled their lines last night. So I do like Ottawa 2 here. There's no ownership on them. Under 0.5% projected, 16,000 to full stack. So Ottawa 2 is interesting to me. I think even going down to Ottawa 3 as a filler, you don't have to full stack. You can do like Pinto Tarasenko, Pinto Joseph, something like that, if you're looking to, fit in some expensive power play stuff. So that's where I am at the Ottawa side. On the Boston side, if it is Coyle, Marchand, Pasternak, 22.5, there's just better expensive lines here tonight. It's just a fact. Like, they're back-to-back on the road, and I know Ottawa's atrocious defensively. That I just would rather play Edmonton. I'd rather play let me see. Sorry. I'd rather play Tampa Bay. I'd rather play Edmonton. I'd rather play Dallas's of the world, this and that. So, like, I guess Boston 1 is fine in MME. I just don't feel like spending $22,500 for a line with Charlie Coyle back-to-back on the road.
So, I'm kind of with you on Ottawa. I'm not a fan of Norris. Like, I was even their line had actually been pretty good the last couple games, but I was looking at their last 60 minutes, which would include nearly 20, about 1/3 of that would be from those last two games. Still at 2.7 expected goals for and 3.3 against. They're still getting outplayed, even if you include the two games where they probably played their best all season. So it's just been really tough sledding for Ottawa. One of the problems I have is the Ottawa power play has not really been that great this year. It's certainly been a step down from what it was last year. And last year was something that was really one of their strengths. And it's something that, it was a reason why you would play Ottawa on a lot of nights was not only how many penalties they draw, but how good the power play was. I was looking over over their last 10 games, they have 2 power play goals, 2 or 3 off the top of my head. They're just not, and they're not really generating a lot. Boston has been taking a lot of penalties, 3.9 minor penalties per game over the last couple months. Ottawa does draw a lot of power plays. They're at 3.7. So maybe they can get there. I think I agree with you. I would go with Ottawa too. In 265 minutes for Stützle and Batherson with anybody but Brady Tkachuk. So, that would include Grieg. It would include Matthew Joseph. It would include Tarasenko, I think. 2.9 expected goals, 3.2 actual goals per 60. They've been pretty good. You get 2 out of the 3 guys on that top power play unit if they can get going. So I certainly don't mind Ottawa too. I'm going to be honest. I think I like the Boston side better here. And it feels weird to say because this feels like a game where I would normally slam Ottawa because you're right. They're not coming in with very much ownership. Like you said, less than 0.5% on the second line, 1.1% on the top line. There's no ownership. Boston really jumbled their lines last night. And what is interesting to me about the jumble that they made is that they put Pasternak, DeBrusk, and Pavel Zacha together. That particular trio hasn't played a lot for Boston this year. They're up around 55 minutes, or 55 minutes, but 75 shot attempts for, 3.9 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5. And not only that, but they took James Van Riemsdyk off the power play in the third period last night and put DeBrusk there. So if it is Pasternak, Zacha, DeBrusk in warmups against Ottawa, that's probably going to be a perfectly correlated line. And Ottawa takes nearly as many penalties as Boston does. Boston draws nearly as many power plays as Ottawa does. You get all 3 guys on the top power play unit. And if it is Zacha Pasternak and DeBrusk, I think the line off the top of my head is 18-4, which is pretty reasonable for a perfectly correlated Boston line. And this Ottawa team is still a mess defensively. So I will say, like, of the line combinations that we have in our top stacks, I have the most interest in Ottawa too. I agree with you. I'm not playing $23,000 Boston line. But if warm-up rolls around and it is Zach and DeBrusk, Pasternak on the top line together, I think that's one of the late swaps that I was talking about that I might make, because I'm not worried about the Ottawa one matchup. That line sucks defensively. Like the Ottawa penalty kill, it's improving, but it's still like average at best, and they still take way too many penalties. So like, yeah, of the lines that we have, I think Ottawa 2 is my favorite line. But if that new line combination is a line combination for Boston, I think that's a line that I would swap to.
Yeah. That's one of the things you have to wait and see, right? So like, we just don't know because they played yesterday. Coach generally doesn't go nuts with line switches. So like, it's one of those things you have to wait and see in warm up. So
yeah,
but that is a good point. You will definitely get that trio low owned if they are together. We have a $9.99 super chat from Chuck Dynasty. Thank you, Chuck. He says, thanks for the content. Best in the biz. Don't know about that, but we can't do it without you guys. You know what I mean? Like, we're doing this for you. I'm doing this for me too. Like, if we're being honest, I'm doing this for me, but like, we're also doing it for you. It helps my process out a lot, talking this out on the show. But yeah, no, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and thank you for the super chat.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chuck. We certainly appreciate the super chat. We appreciate your support. Appreciate you in Discord too. Always helping out, whether it's answering questions when Josh or I might not be around, or just posting lines, or just kind of shooting the breeze. Certainly appreciate having you around in the Discord. Thanks for the super chat. Thanks for the support. We certainly we do appreciate it.
Yeah, we do. And piggybacking off of that, if you do choose to sign up through the affiliate link in the chat, you get access to the best NHL data and tools in the industry. You get player and ownership projections, top stacks tools, line combinations, and of course, that Discord. Our shows are always free. Excuse me. Cliffy's article is always free to read on most Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So it's up on the site today, stokastic.com/NHL. And yeah, we appreciate you guys. You don't have to go premium, but if you are thinking about it, go through the link in the chat. It supports us directly, and it helps us bring you the free content that we give you. And if you do go premium, you can get in that Discord, and Clayton will read you the rules. Something about keeping your hands where he can see them. Arizona Coyotes with a 2.7 total heading into Tampa. The Lightning have a 3.8 total. The Coyotes got absolutely mollywopped last night, 6-2. That game was over before it started. Vejmelka didn't look great. It is Connor Ingram tonight, their better goalie. Back-to-back on the road in Tampa is not the best. Not the best going back-to-back into Tampa. It is Ingram. It's still a very good power play spot for Tampa Bay. They're 24,400 to full stack. 30.6% top two stack percentage. They're only coming in at 8% projected because they're so expensive. And you have an Edmonton one line that's 26-1 against Chicago. So, yeah, that's probably why they're only 8%. But this is one of the better power play spots on the night. I'd argue there might be better that we'll get to. But Arizona does take a lot of penalties. Their penalty kill isn't great. It's just a matter of if Ingram can stop it. So, yeah, Tampa Bay 1 I'm in on. If you want to play Tampa 2, I guess that's fine. But, like, I really want exposure to the power play guys tonight. Tampa Bay 2, I guess, is fine as a filler if you want it to be. They are coming in negatively leveraged, though. I don't love playing negatively leveraged Nick Paul. But he is on the top power play unit for whatever reason. So I guess it's fine. The interesting side, honestly, is Arizona 1. Because as good as that Stamkos Kucherov point line is defensively or offensively, they're awful defensively. And let's not pretend like Vasilevsky has been great this year. He's coming back from back surgery. He's hasn't been great. So, like, if you want to play some Arizona 1 here, I'm not saying go out and do it in single entry, but in your MME portfolio, 14-8 for the top line, I think is fine. And then if you want to do like a Cooley Genther 2-man or whatever, because they're on the top power play unit, I think that's fine as well. They got there last night late in garbage time, but I don't mind going back to them tonight either.
Yeah, I wrote up Nikita Kucherov in the picks article basically because of the power play matchup. Arizona's been taking quite a few penalties. They're up to 4.1 minor penalties per game over the last couple of months. It's amongst the highest in the league. I think it's third behind Anaheim and Florida. There's actually 14 power plays in that game last night. Arizona had 9 power plays in that game. Anyways, and Tampa Bay is pretty good at drawing power plays themselves. 3.7 power play or minor penalties drawn per game over the last couple months. We know how good the Tampa power play is. You know, the top line is having trouble scoring. I think they're at 2.2 goals per 60, but over the last couple seasons, they're like double that. So it's clearly just like a shooting percentage issue. So yeah, I really do like Tampa 1. What are they doing with our boy Mikey Esamon? Like, Tampa goes out and beats. I think you're on mute. Tampa goes out and beats Philly 6-3, and he plays the entire game on the second line, and then they move him down. I think they're doing it so that they can have like a good third checking line, which makes sense because Nick Paul hasn't been able to be that for Tampa Bay this season. Just kind of sucks from a DFS perspective. I agree with you. I really do like Tampa 1. Not coming in with a lot of ownership. I don't think you'd expect them to at 24,400. It's expensive to play them. I don't think they're going to have very high ownership just because of the pricing and because of Edmonton later on this slate. I mean, the Tampa Bay second line actually had really good numbers with Esamont. They don't with Paul. I don't know what to say. Him and Cirelli have played a lot of time together this season, and their expected goals for is like around 2.1. Like, they just don't generate anything, Cirelli and Paul, when they're on the ice together, regardless of who's next to them. So for me, it's probably Tampa 1 to full stack. I don't mind taking like a one-off Cirelli, a one-off Hagel, something like that. On the Arizona side, I should probably mention that Jack McBain got moved back up. Unsurprisingly, their line combinations didn't last very long last night. Jack McBain was moved back up on the top line with Keller and Schmaltz. Keller and McBain, you know, small sample, only 60 minutes, but 70 shot attempts, 2.7 expected goals for in those 60 minutes per 60. So not really that bad. With Paul on the second line, I don't think that's going to be a very good defensive line. At best, they're going to be like a 50-50 line, which, you know, might play into the favor of Arizona here. I think I'm with you. Like, if I was playing a bunch of lineups, you're probably going to get Keller, Schmaltz, and McBain at a low ownership rate. Schmaltz and Keller both have really, really good playmaking numbers this season. The 5-on-5 goal scoring doesn't really show for it. I'm not sure Jack McBain is the answer. We're still waiting for Barrett Hayton to come back. It's like, to help us, Barrett Hayton, you're our only hope. But Arizona 2 is where I think things get a little bit interesting for me, because Genther and Cooley, like, you're right, like, they got there late last night, but they've been playing pretty well together in a depth role. 3.2 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5 in their 85 minutes together. Genther has 23 shots in 9 games, and he's played at least 15 minutes in 5 straight, averaging over around 17 minutes in that span. Played over 20 minutes last night. I don't think he'll play 20 again. I think that was a function of the score. Yeah, well, yeah, that too. Power play in the score. I think he had like 7 minutes in power play time, thinking back to my article this morning. Like, oh my God. But like a Genther Cooley too, man. Like, I have no problem going back to that. Arizona does draw a lot of power plays. It is a back-to-back. They do draw a lot of power plays, and they're cheap enough where you don't need them to get like 2 or 3 goals to reach DFS value. So I think Genther and Cooley is what I like best on the Arizona side.
Don't have to convince me twice to play Dylan Genther. He's a highly touted prospect too. He's just not in the bottom 6 because he's just there. He's a guy, but he was like the 3rd overall pick a few years ago, so he's a legit prospect.
Yeah.
New Jersey Devils with a 2.9 total heading into Carolina. The Spencer Martins have a 3.5 total. Devils going Bratt, Heischer, Meyer, and then Toffoli, Mercer, Palat. Palat being back is a big help. Obviously, Michael McLeod out for whatever. We were not going to talk about it. The interesting side anyway is Carolina, and they played last night, and their lines changed. And Svechnikov maybe is back. Maybe he isn't. I don't know. We both think he's probably not going to play tonight. But Bunting got moved off that line. It was Jordan Martinook there. Does he go back there? I don't know. But there is definitely a scenario where Carolina lines are different. You can get them at a very, very low owned combo. They're low owned as they are, as it is right now. They're back to back, but they're at home, and the Devils lines suck defensively. Their goalies aren't very good. Nico Dawes is in net tonight. Nothing against the kid. He just hasn't been very good. So I do really like Carolina. We talked about how their power play isn't as good without Svechnikov. It's still fine. They scored on the power play against Boston last night, and Boston has a pretty good penalty kill. So, excuse me. I just want to see what these lines look like. As it is, like, I don't mind Aho, Teravainen, X. I was kind of hoping last night it would be Jarvis up there. But if it is Martinook up there, that line's going to be super cheap, and you can get them really low owned. And Martinook's a good offensive player. He's just, he's always on that stall line. He's kind of like, I don't want to really liken him to Drew O'Connor, but he's kind of like Drew O'Connor, where like he shoots a low percentage.
Yeah,
so, like,
I think for me, for like the guy that I always think about when I think about Martinook is like a Nino Niederreiter. Like, I think if Martinook could stay healthy and actually play 15 minutes a game consistently, he'd score 20 goals a season.
Yeah. So yeah, I like the Carolina top 6 pending lines. On the Devils side, like, they're fine. I'm not going to prioritize them in 1 to 3 by any means, but 20 to 150, if they get into my crunch or my optimizer, it's fine. Like, the top line's fully correlated. Carolina has issues in net. But, like, I'm not running out to play the Devils here.
Yeah, I am also not running out to play the Devils. Going into Carolina is always a brutal matchup. I will say, Spencer Martin started last night. So it's probably our boy Antti Ranta in net tonight. And that's a little bit concerning because, like, New Jersey's missing a lot of players. But Hischier and Brad have really good offensive numbers together. 77 shot attempts, 4.1 expected goals per 60 in 195 minutes without Tyler Toffoli on their line. Like, they have generally been able to create a lot of offense. And, Carolina's obviously a great defensive team, generally an excellent penalty kill as well. But against Ranta, like, you don't need to create a lot. Like, if that line gets 5 shots, they could score 3 goals. Like, that's kind of the point that I'm getting at here. And there's not going to be much ownership on them. We're showing us 2.7% for that top line with Timo Meier there, 6.5% top 2 stack percentage. I don't know if I'm not targeting them in my single entry. I do think there are reasons to play New Jersey, and it's one. Their top lines actually got pretty good numbers together. And talked about it on Tuesday's show. Meier and Hischier have a better style together to play together than Meier and Jack Hughes do. And I kind of think that could be a pretty good line for New Jersey. That's all I have interest in. I am not a Dawson Mercer guy. Him and Tyler Toffoli. with any winger but Jesper Bratt beside them, they're at 4 expected goals against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. They are getting pummeled. And that's why I like the Carolina side here. Like if Martinook's on the top line, you'll probably get Martinook, Teravainen, and Aho at a low combination. Aho and Teravainen didn't play very much last night. I think Aho only played like 17 minutes. It seems like they're almost saving them here for tonight, which seems weird considering it's a game against Boston. But they should, it's still a back-to-back, but it's not like they played 24 minutes or something like that last night. The Aho top line with wingers besides Svechnikov and Jarvis, 68 shot attempts per 60. I wrote up Jordan Martinook in the article. Since Christmas, he's second on amongst their forwards in shots per 60 minutes, and now he'll probably get to play with Aho. They'll probably avoid the Hischier line for the most part, and that's the only line you have to worry about defensively. Like, it's not just missing Jack Hughes and McLeod, like it's also missing Hamilton and Siegenthaler, right? Like that's literally their top defense pair. Like they're having to play rookies. I think a lot of Hughes and Nemec, don't get me wrong. I think they're both going to be like literally like all-stars, perennial all-stars, but they're still rookie defensemen. They're having to play them as if they're a top pair in some games, and they just can't do that. In fact, what I brought up in the article is New Jersey's dead last by expected goals against per 60 at 5-on-5 since the Jack Hughes injury. I'm really in on Carolina one here, Aho, Teravainen, and Martinook. Even if it's like, even if they move Bunting back there or they have Seth Jarvis there, maybe they move up Martin Necas, though that line's playing so well, I can't imagine they're going to break them up. I have interest in whatever Carolina one is at lock, or at warm up. Just be aware that with that game starting at 7:30 Eastern, 4 games will have already locked by then. And if you have to make a swap, Martinook's under 3K, and if you have to swap up to a Seth Jarvis or something like that, like you're going to have to look for 2,600. Even if it's Necas, you're going to have to look for 1,500. If it's Bunting, it's 1,300. Like because of Martinook's price, you could be kind of boned. Just make sure you build your lineup around that. But I love Carolina one here.
Yeah, Devils have been awful. Goaltending awful. Missing Hamilton, Siegenthaler, huge. Like they called up some defenseman who's never played in the NHL for tonight. It's just like they're searching. They need these guys to get healthy. Anaheim Ducks, 2.5 total. Heading into Dallas, the Stars have a 4 total. We were talking about this game before we came on the air. And we were talking about how good the numbers of Dallas One are with Wyatt Johnson. It's not only just Wyatt Johnson. The numbers of Dallas One with anyone but Joe Pavelski have been ridiculous. I love this spot. It's one of the best. I'd argue this is the best power play spot on the night. You can argue Arizona, whatever. There's just a ton of really good spots. Dallas won 17-8 to full stack. Wyatt Johnson's not on the top power play unit, and that's kind of a bummer, but he's a good young lad, and I would leave him on the stack. You could add in a Ben, add in a Miro Heiskanen, who we'll talk about later. He's back tonight. You can add a Pavelski, whatever. But I'm in on Dallas one. I do like our boys, Duchesne, Sagan, and Marchment. I do prefer the power play guys here tonight just because this is an elite power play spot. But you can use Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment. Let's not pretend the Ducks are good defensively 5-on-5 either. They're not. So I think they're fine. But I'm in heavily on Dallas one here. I even think Dallas 3 is fine. Sam Steele does nothing for me. He's just the guy. But Jamie Benn and Joe Pavelski are on the top power play unit. They're cheaper than Dallas one. They are going to get ownership, but not as much as Dallas one. So I think that is an interesting way to get a little bit different if you're worried about the ownership on Dallas one. On the Anaheim side, I don't have a ton of interest here. Like, I don't mind Carlson, Terry, Henrique. The issue that I'm running into here is it's just not a good matchup. And it's generally not a good matchup anytime the Ducks are on the road. If they happen to squeak into your 20 max or 150 max, sure, leave them. But like, I'm definitely not running out to play them on the top power or in my 1 to 3. I wish Henrique was on the top power play unit, like anyone but Sam Carrick. on that unit, and I'd be happier. But it is what it is. I'm in on Dallas, not so much on Anaheim. If they get into your MMA portfolio, so be it.
Yeah, I imagine the Dallas top line is going to go out against that Terry Carlson Henrique line. It's not a great matchup for Dallas, but you mentioned how good they are without Joe Pavelski. Like, going back to last season, Hintz and Robertson have played nearly 150 minutes at 5-on-5 without Pavelski. 4.3 expected goals, 5.3 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. That's literally like a low. That's like, it's honestly the Philadelphia Flyers power play at 5-on-5. It is slandering the Flyers. I just had to. It is absolutely bonkers how good they are. They're still really good with Pavelski. That's why they were together so long, is because they were still really good with Pavelski. But it's just, whether it's been Tyler Seguin or Matt Duchene or now Wyatt Johnston, they've just been crushing the opponent whenever they've been together. And Anaheim is the most penalized team in the league. It's something we bring up every time they're on the slate. Over the last 2 months, they're at 4.9 minor penalties per game. The league average is about 3.4, and only one other team is over 4.1. Like, they take a lot of penalties, and we know how good Dallas's power play can be. Now, Dallas doesn't draw a lot of power plays, but they could honestly only need 3 power plays here to go to score twice. Like, that's just how good their power play is and how bad Anaheim's penalty kill can be. I really, really do like Dallas one. I worry about ownership, because they're not that expensive. They're only 17,800. We're showing 13.3%. They're coming off a pretty big game as well. Their last time out. So I don't wonder if that's not like 15, 16, 17%. That's what kind of worries me. But with Miro Heiskanen back for Dallas, and that line relatively cheap, and Heiskanen, I think he's only 5,400 on DK. Like, Heiskanen is probably going to go right back to the top power play unit. Like, you can add him to the stack, dilute the ownership a little bit, and it's still not even that expensive. Like, the top line plus Heiskanen is 23,200. That's $1,200 less than just Tampa Bay. I really do like Dallas one. If you want to go to Dallas two, I don't have a real issue with that. The Anaheim top line, I think, is going to be the only line that'll really be good defensively. Once you get to those second and third lines, like Lundestrom and Silverberg have actually been pretty good. McTavish hasn't, though, at least not defensively. So I'm wondering if they can support him. I think Dallas 2 is perfectly fine, but it is Dallas 1 I really do like here. And if you're worried about ownership, add Jamie Benn to the stack, add Miro Heiskanen to the stack, make it a power play stack. You can do things like that. I think there are ways to work around what should be heavy ownership on Dallas here.
Yeah. Agreed. There are ways to get different in this game and not really worry about the ownership. As we mentioned before, thank you guys so much for the support through the affiliate links in the super chat. It doesn't even have to be NHL. I have MMA content weekly. There's no UFC this weekend, but there will be UFC next weekend. NHL will be on the All-Star break. There's no NFL next weekend. So if you're itching for some action, MMA is your spot. I'll have a weekly video out. MMA Sims debuted last week. They were awesome. I loved it. Gonna be 150 maxing again. You can get a weekly, you can get monthly Sims. Definitely worth it if you're into MMA. So yeah, check out the affiliate link there. Look for my content next week. And hit me up on Twitter if you have any questions about it. Nashville Predators, 2.9 total. Heading into Minnesota, the Wild have a 3.1 total. Not a lot of ownership in this game. And this is a sneaky good power play spot on both sides. It's a really good power play spot for Nashville 1. But the issue, why you see the ownership so low, 9.6% projected top 2, 4.6% projected ownership, is they're going to get the Joel Eriksson-Ek matchup at 5-on-5. Not a very good 5-on-5 matchup, but this is a very good power play matchup. Minnesota's penalty kill, not good at all. Nashville 1, fully correlated. So this is one of the lines I have written down for my single entry tonight. I don't know if I'm going to get there just because it's not a very good 5-on-5 spot, but it is a very, very good power play spot, and they have positive leverage. Nashville depth, they keep mixing and matching the lines. I just, Tommy Novak one-off is fine. A Colton Sissons one-off is fine because he's on the power play, but not a huge fan of their lines after the top one, and the top one's in a very good power play matchup. On the flip side, the Joel Eriksson-Ek line is going to see a whole gaggle of the O'Reilly-Forsberg-Nyquist line. And that line actually hasn't been great defensively over the past month or 6 weeks. So I even don't even mind that line. I do also like the Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi line. I wish Rossi was on the top power play unit, but beggars can't be choosers there. Like the Nashville depth, like some of these guys are good defensively. It's just like they don't stay together long enough to have a good defensive line because they're jumbling all over the place. So I don't really have matchup concerns here. You get 2 guys on the top power play unit on the first line, 2 guys on the top power play unit on the second line, and they're coming in both under 2% projected. So I think this is a sneaky good power play spot for Minnesota. It's just, UC Saros is starting, and, he can completely shut down anything. So, but it's a good power play spot. So I'm interested in both sides here.
Yeah. I wrote up Nashville in the picks article. It is the power play that drew me there initially. The Nashville top power play actually with Colton Sissons, they're at 12 goals per 60 at 5-on-5. That's really good power play production. Minnesota also taking the 4th most minor penalties per game over the last 2 months. They take a ton of penalties. They're still bottom 10 in the league by shots against on the penalty kill over their last 15 games. So what was a very bad penalty kill is not getting any better. They've given up 20 power play goals against in their last 23 games. Like, it's just atrocious how bad this Minnesota PK is. And that's why I really do like Nashville 1. It is a pretty bad 5-on-5 matchup for them. Eriksson-Ek and Foligno, they always have good defensive numbers this season, no different. 1.7 expected goals against. It is a tough 5-on-5 matchup for Nashville. But they're not coming in with much ownership. They're around 4%. The top 2 stack percentage is around 9%. I think it's a good leverage spot for Nashville. Like, it's one of those things where if they go 2 for 4 on the power play, all they need is 1 lucky goal at 5-on-5 or 1 empty netter or something like that, and they can get there. Like, they don't really need to get 2 or 3 goals at 5-on-5. It's that good of a power play matchup. So Nashville 1 is definitely a consideration. I wish they would leave the Nashville lines together, the depth lines, because there are some players that I would play against the second. It's not necessarily the second and third matchups from Minnesota from their forwards. It's their defensemen. Like, once you get past Spurge or Brodin and Faber, like that blue line's, I was going to drop an F-bomb, is not very good, to put it mildly.
We suck again.
Yeah. Like if they had Sherwood, Novak, Evangelista together and playing even like 14, 15 minutes a game regularly, I would have interest, but I'm pretty sure they yeeted Sherwood off that line in their last game. So, like, they do it, like you said, they do it every game. So, like, if you want a one-off, like a Novak or one-off, a Cole Smith or something like that, I think that's fine. I just find it hard to stack any of the depth from Nashville. On the Minnesota side, it is Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi that I do like best, because the Nashville top line has struggled defensively. They've been a little bit better over their last 10 games, but there's really no matchup concerns once you get to those Nashville second and third lines. Kaprizov, Zuccarello, and Rossi actually don't have great expected goals numbers together, but they do have good goal scoring numbers, and I think it's just another one of those situations where you have talented players that can kind of break the expected goals models a little bit. So I do have interest in Minnesota 1. Not coming in with much ownership at all, 1.3% ownership. The Nashville penalty kill, really not that great. Middle of the road is the best that you can say about them. Minnesota is drawing a fair amount of power plays, 3.7 minor penalties drawn per game over their last 2 months. So I think it's Nashville 1 that I like best in this game overall. I'm going to be honest, because I think it's that good of a power play spot for them. But I think Minnesota 1 is certainly in play. And if you want to just play Minnesota 2 instead, no issue with that. But it's another one of those situations where I'm just not stacking Minnesota without Kaprizov.
Yeah. And I'm not really sure what Andrew Brunette is doing, because there's guys in that bottom six that they could put together to be a really good defensive line. Like you put Cody Glass at center, you put Sissons with him or one other guy with him, leave them together. They probably have a good second defensive line, but I'm not Andrew Burnett. And we're not here to talk about Andrew Burnett. We're here to talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, who have a 2.8 total heading into Calgary. The Flames, the Pilot Lights, have a 3.7 total. Zach Werenski's back. That doesn't really help them defensively, but it definitely helps them offensively. He is easily their best puck mover, best offensive blue liner. I don't really want to play Columbus here tonight, though. That's the thing. If anything, it would be I don't want to play them, but if anything, it would be against the line that's going to be seeing the Lindholm, Sharangovich, Huberdeau line. That line has been pretty atrocious defensively. They're pretty high event. And that would be my boy, Kent Johnson.
Like, honestly, like jumping through so many hoops just to try to get Ken Johnson mentioned on this show. Like, you didn't have to do that.
It's an art, Cliffy. It's an art. I had to say Kent Johnson. Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest, but that Marchenko, Voronkov, Kent Johnson are going to see Lindholm, Sharangovich, Huberdeau, and that line isn't great offensively or defensively. So, if anything, it would be that line. I just don't have a ton of interest. In Columbus, I obviously have interest in the Calgary side. It's just where you want to go, right? Because all these lines are pretty much priced as filler lines. My voice is fading fast, so I'm going to be quick here. Again, like all these lines are over leveraged. Kadri line's the cheapest at 12-1, and they're the highest negative leverage of the three. Like Columbus's penalty kill is bad, but they don't take a ton of penalties. So I don't think you need to, stack Lindholm, Sharangovich, Huberdeau for the power play. So I think all the lines are in play. It's just a matter of preference. And for me, it's always going to be that Kadri, Zari, Coronado line. I just wish, Coronado and Zari played more. So I honestly think like a Kadri one-off is perfectly fine here.
Yeah. I will say for the Columbus side, it's not the Marchenko, Voronkov, Johnson line I have interest in. I can't believe he did that. It's Jenner, Fantilli, and Rozovic, and it's for a couple reasons. One, Fantilli and Rozovic are up to 70 minutes together, 59 shot attempts for, 61 against per 60. So they're at least generating some offense, right, in their limited time together. The other thing is like they're going to as for line matching, the backline line is going to go out against Sillinger, Chinnikov, and Gaudreau. After that, I don't really care what the matchup is, right? That's the thing, is like the Sharangovich Huberdeau line is not good defensively. I was looking at Calgary's numbers. Like, I think Martin Pospisil's impact has gone kind of overlooked because Connor Zary has been really good, but Martin Pospisil was good too. And losing him is a pretty big loss, I think, for that line. I was looking at their defensive numbers without Pospisil this year. They're up to 167 minutes without him. That's about 15, 16 games worth of ice time. 2.8 expected goals against, 3.7 actual goals against per 60. Like, I think Columbus too is not really in that bad of a spot. And the two guys, I wouldn't full stack them. I would leave Boone Jenner off because one thing Calgary does have is a really, really good penalty kill, and Jenner's on the top power play unit. So I feel like he's kind of almost a waste of money to play. And I would just two-man Fantilli and Rozovic. I think that's perfectly fine here in this matchup, but it is the Calgary side I like best. I wrote up Nazem Kadri in the picks article. After basically since Connor Zary got there at the very start of November, Kadri has looked like the Kadri that we expect. Like, kind of like that 30-goal, 70-point center that can average 3 shots per game. That's what he's been since Zary joined his line. They are coming in with a lot of ownership. I think kind of rightfully so, because they are priced as a real filler stack, 12% ownership. I think it is Calgary 1, Lindholm, Sharangovich, Huberdeau that I do have more interest in, because if that Columbus penalty kill doesn't get better immediately with Jenner back, It's a pretty good power play spot for Calgary. So Calgary 1 is what I've interested in the most in this game. Lindholm, Sharangovich, Huberdeau. 71 shot attempts at 125 minutes, 71 shot attempts per 60, 125 minutes together. Sharangovich, nearly 16 shot attempts individually over his last 10 games per 60 minutes. So, like, they're generating. And it might not be that bad of a power play spot. I think Columbus, too, is kind of sneaky here tonight because once you get past that Coleman matchup, there's really not a whole lot to worry about. And we'll get to defensemen, but shout out Oliver Shillington. It's been almost 2 years since he's been in the NHL. It was away for personal reasons. That's a long time to be away from the NHL. And he was really good when he left. If he's really good when he came back, he's going to make this Flames team a lot better. So congrats to him. Might make the matchup a little bit tougher, but that's why I like Calgary better anyway.
Yeah, I've been playing Calgary 1 a bunch. And like the first time I played them last week, I was like clicking them in. I was like, why is Yegor Sharangovich $5,000 on DraftKings? Dude's on pace for almost 40 goals this season. Like, what? How? That was a surprise. Not a surprise. Chicago Blackhawks, poopers. 2.2 total. Heading into Edmonton, the Oilers have a 17.9 total. That's almost believable. They have a 4.3, though. They're loading the top line. They moved Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to the second line center. It's going to be Draisaitl, McDavid, Hyman. Now, if you thought Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, McDavid, Hyman had good numbers, wait until you get a load of these bad boys. Like, these guys are just absolute, like, 94 octane from Sunoco. Like, they just straight up nuke everybody. Now, they're 26,100 to full stack on DraftKings. You literally can't fit them with Evan Bouchard. It's not possible. So they're going to take up more than 50% of your salary cap. So I would imagine they're going to, like, the top stacks, we still have Nugent Hopkins there at 24.6, projected at 10%. With Draisaitl there, them being a double C, $1,500 more expensive, I think you're going to see that ownership go down a little bit. And, like, easily the best line of the night. But there's some concerns there. This game's going to be over before it starts. Like, Chicago sucks. Like, I don't care if you think, oh, maybe they're in this game. They're not. They're bad. Anything could happen, right? But, like, if I'm going to be honest about breaking this down, like, this line, if they play 17 minutes tonight, the game's out of hand, right? Do they have their hand in all of the goals? Possibly. But, like, it was that Colorado 1 situation from a few weeks ago when they were like 25-8. I was like, they're going to need 80 DraftKings points at least to pay off their salary. Can they do it? Yes. Do you want to bank on it and find a filler line that goes off at the same time when you have all these high guns on this slate, all these really good power play spots? I think for me in my 1 to 3, I don't want to bank on that. Like, I would need 85 DK points at an Edmonton 1 and then find a filler line that does something when I could just, do, like, I could stack Nashville, I could stack Dallas, and I can fit them in with actual defensemen and another actual line instead of, putting Kent Johnson in my lineup. But in a nutshell, I think they're the best play on the night. Salary agnostic. I just think if this game gets out of hand, you're going to see, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, that line, play 18 minutes. You're going to see the third line play 15 minutes. You're not going to see McDavid playing 23, 24 minutes tonight. So while I think they're a great play, I think just the odds are stacked against you from, like, I think the easy part is getting the result from Edmonton, right? That result is definitely possible. I think it's a lot harder to find that filler line on this slate that can score enough to keep you in the money with Edmonton 1.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago went into Edmonton a couple months ago, and that's it wasn't quite that bad, but McDavid only played 20 minutes. Draisaitl played 18. Hyman played 17. They got up 2-1 after the first period and just basically put it on cruise control. What I mentioned in our Discord, like they went to this line combination in their last game, but it's not something that they had done a lot, especially under Chris Knobloch. I almost called him Chuck Knobloch. I'm going to do it eventually by the end of the season.
Can throw just as good as Chuck Knobloch.
But what I mentioned in our Discord is that I think they're leaving them all together for the express purpose of having 3 other lines that they can keep together and then play those lines more while they rest Draisaitl, McDavid, and Hyman together. Because if you have Draisaitl on the second line and you have McDavid and Hyman on the top line, like you have to play them eventually. You can't just keep cycling through your third and fourth lines. If you have them all together, you can cycle through your second, third, and fourth line for the second and third period. Like, I think that's kind of the idea here. Now, that's just a guess on my part, but it wouldn't be shocking to me to see like all 3 of the guys on the top line play like 17 minutes here tonight. Like, can they get there in those 17 minutes? Like, absolutely. But like, Chicago's not been a terrible defensive team. Like, that's kind of the other thing. This isn't New Jersey where the defensive numbers have just, completely fallen off a cliff. As Chicago's, gone through their injury problems. I was looking at their numbers since Connor Bedard got hurt. Basically, the middle of the league by expected goals against. Like, they're in there with like Vegas, Colorado, and Nashville at 5-on-5. Their actual goals against is like, it's bad, but it's not terrible. It's like 23rd in the league or something like that. The penalty kill has generally been pretty good. Like, there are a lot of reasons not to play Edmonton here tonight. So I'm not going to say don't play them. If you want to just one-off McDavid or one-off Hyman, I think that's perfectly fine. I just think there are other spots that I'd rather go to than Edmonton with ice time concerns. Like, I genuinely think you're going to see them not play a lot, especially in the third period and all that. So I'm going to be honest, I don't really have a lot of interest in stacking either side of this game. It's one of those, like, if Edmonton burns me and, those guys play 21 minutes and put up 5 goals between them or whatever, like, congratulations to everybody that does play them. I won't be one of them.
Well, like, even if they do, you still have to find a very cheap line to do something with it.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that you just end up throwing in a whole pile of one-offs because you're not playing like Philly 4 or something like that just to fit in a full stack.
I mean, there are very cheap defensemen that are going to be in play tonight. And we'll get to them in a second, but like, it's probably possible. I haven't started building yet. Like, and maybe I'm going to see what I can do with Edmonton one, but I don't think I'm going to prioritize them. They're just too expensive. Let's talk about said defenseman, shall we? The 2 min price guys that I basically was foreshadowing. Shillington for Calgary. I don't know what he's going to play tonight, but he is min priced. And was it Zellweger? I forget how to say his last name. For the Ducks.
Yeah, it's Renee's son.
Yeah, he is legitimately one of the best. He's not, but he's legitimately one. I just kept going. He's just Kent Johnson. He's legitimately one of the best. One of the best D-man prospects in the league. He's just not a guy. Like, Ducks can be fun in the next few years if they hit their potential. He's min price running the top power play. It's the Ducks power play, but he is min price, so don't mind that. Who you liking for the top end?
Yeah, I wrote up Bouchard in the picks article. You have to consider him just because it is Chicago. Bouchard, I said, he's one of 3 defensemen with at least 10 goals and 30 assists at this point of the season. The other 2 being Hughes and Makar. He's been really, really good. Obviously, I think Roman Yossi's in a pretty good spot. It's just a really good power play spot for Nashville, and he might have to block a bunch of shots from Minnesota anyway. Going back to the Mike Matheson I think makes sense. He's had a couple rough games of late, but I think he makes a lot of sense. Jake Sanderson for Ottawa in that mid-price range is somebody I like. Like, Miro Heiskanen coming back in that matchup is really interesting for me. I'm kind of worried that they're going to hold back his minutes because they should have that game in hand.
He is confirmed top power play, though.
Yeah, so I'm pretty in on Heiskanen. If you want to play play Brock Faber again, go get your 16.8 DK points or whatever from him. Brock Faber certainly in play. Shimon Nemec from New Jersey. Might have to block a lot of shots here tonight. Caden Gooley, the same for Montreal. Yeah, there are cheap guys like Zellweger, 2,500, Jack-Eye, 2,500, Mike Kesselring, 2,700 for Arizona. Matt Dumba out for Arizona. He got injured. They're already missing Troy Stetcher. Like Kesselring, I think, played 17 or 18 minutes, so 2,700 for him makes sense. Oli Mata for Detroit, he's been playing like 20, 21 minutes a game on average over the last couple of weeks, so he's 2,600. That's not bad. Obviously, Oliver Shillington as well for Calgary. I think there's a minutes concern there for him, but at 2,500, I don't think you can really complain about minutes. If you want to, like some other cheap defensemen, I like Chris Tanev, also from Calgary, Elias Lindholm in Boston, Radko Gudas from Anaheim. That has 5 block shots written all over it. Adam Pelech has been second in ice time, I think, for the Islanders, maybe third, but he's been getting over 21 minutes of late for the Islanders. Don't mind him. And our old buddy from Philly, Yamcore, 3,700 on DK. Don't mind him, especially if Drysdale's out tonight.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of cheap defensemen that you can jam in Edmonton with, so definitely buildable there. Let's talk about goalies for a second. Jake Ottinger back. Woo! Jake Ottinger is back, 8,400. I feel like the only people in DFS who like Jake Ottinger are me and you. I feel like the battle of the bastards. We're just like pulling our swords out. We've got horses charging at us. I like him here.
Whoa! Don't pull your sword out. This is a family show.
Crossing swords, occupational hazard. I don't partake in. So you're right. But Jake Ottinger, 8,400. I don't mind him in cash games. This is a very winnable game. I don't even mind Jacob Markstrom. Like, honestly, like he's been very good. He's more of the Jacob Markstrom from 2 seasons ago than the Jacob Markstrom from last season. Vasilevsky, yeah. Ronta, yeah. Leon, like, I guess he's fine. He's fine. Like, I don't love him, but he's fine.
I mean, tell me a goalie you do love.
Henrik Lundqvist.
Oh yeah, too bad Igor isn't on the slate, so he can give up 5 goals on 28 shots.
No, I'm over Igor right now. He's been bad. He's been bad. Don't mind Varlamov at 7,600. UC Saros at 7,400. I'm always interested in. And like, I know this is a brutal matchup for the Coyotes, but 7,200 for Ingram. Like, I've been confused why Nashville has released him a few seasons ago, and he's finally showing why. It is a brutal matchup here tonight, and there's always shot volume concerns with Tampa because they're wildly efficient, but I don't mind that if you really need a punt, because after that, like, do you really want to play Peter Mrazek at 6,900 in this spot? I don't know. You know what I mean? But like, of all the goalies on this slate, it's really not as bad as some of the slates we've seen over the past few weeks.
No, and like I do like Alex Lyon tonight. I wrote him up in the picks article. I think he leads the goalie stats section on in the projections by expected saves here tonight, so I don't mind him. I also have both goalies in the Montreal Islanders game. I feel like whichever goalie I take is the one that's going to end up with like negative 2.3 DK points or whatever, while the other one has a 40 save shutout. But I do like them both Varlamov and Montembeault. I had Markstrom fourth on my list, so I agree with you there. I think he's a good option. Like, Columbus generates more shots than people realize. Like, this isn't the terrible offensive Columbus teams I mean, they're bad. They're really, really bad, but it's not the terrible offensive teams of like a couple years ago or whatever. So I don't mind Markstrom. I also have UC Saros. Just, Minnesota's had trouble scoring at times, and if they don't get the power play going, I think UC Saros could have a big night. So yeah, Lyon, both goalies in the Montreal game, Saros and Markstrom are on my list.
Yeah, and again, if you have a lean, you play that lean. Like, goalies, weird. They're just weirdos. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
My hat trick pick, I'm going to Dallas. I'm going with a little bit of chalk, but I'm going with our buddy Bray Wyatt.
I got confused there for a second. Wyatt literally couldn't play for any other team besides the Dallas Stars. Like, that name does not fly in Seattle.
That's a good point.
Let's see here. I'm gonna go Matt Barzal.
Nice. Can't wait to watch the Islanders light up my boys.
I mean, they're gonna get what they deserve for putting Josh Anderson on the top line, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Like, I want to defend them because I want them to be good, because top 6 playoff matchups are so much fun. But woo, Josh Anderson on the top line is the scene. But anyway, we have one more show on Saturday before the All-Star break. So my voice pending, I will be here. Like, Cliffy will be here. Hopefully my voice cooperates, but if I have a voice, I will be here. Make sure to smash that like button on the way out. If you're looking to go premium, the link is in the chat. Thank you guys so much for everything. You guys rock. Good luck tonight, and hope you win some money.
Oh, and shout out Muscles Malinad taking down the $5 150 max last night on DK. We forgot to shout him out at the top of the show. Took that down. Ollie Atticus had a second place finish a couple nights ago. So the boys are starting to run the $5 150. It's nice to see.
I'm not shouting out Ollie. I'll tell you why. Because I forgot about this stat correction. That I had a negative $47,000 stat correction on the third night of the season. This dude, unabated, in the Discord last night goes, "Oh, NHL stats aren't working. At least Josh won't get stat corrected because you can't pay attention to the stats." Out of nowhere, what did I do to you? I've been trying to get you extra noodle Lipton soup, and you treat me like the dirt under your shoe. No, I'm just kidding. Congrats to you. And Muscles Malnad or whatever, elite name. One of my
hopefully we can get a $5 winner. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll see you on Saturday.